Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're locking in on a really massive milestone in our code mastery journey. We are officially on day 11, and our undivided attention is turning entirely to the database review.
Okay, let's dive into this. Day 11, Database Review. This exact quote from our source material is basically our mantra for today. Everything we're going to unpack right now stems directly from this single directive.
Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. First up, Day 11, Database Review. Second, Core Database Mechanics. Third, Architecture and Pitfalls. And finally, Practice, the CRUD application.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Day 11, Database Review.
So our source material breaks this review phase down into a super strict 5-point checklist. We've got SQL queries, indexes, transactions, schema design, and ORM misuse. Listen, if you're doing a database review, these are literally the exact 5 areas where performance bugs just love to hide. This is the armor we need to equip.
Moving right along, we hit Section 2, Core Database Mechanics. First up out of those 5, SQL queries. This is ground zero. Everything starts right here. When we're reviewing, we aren't just giving it a quick glance to see if a query works. No, we're really digging into how we're asking for that information. Are we avoiding that notoriously broad select asterisks? Are we filtering data efficiently? That's our primary hurdle.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how indexes are placed immediately following those queries. That sequence is highly intentional, guys. Once you've reviewed the queries you're running, your absolute next step is making sure you have the proper indexes in place so the database can execute those specific lookups lightning fast without scanning the entire table.
And rounding out this functional triad, we've got transactions. Simply put, this means making sure multiple database operations succeed or fail together as a single unit. It's how we completely avoid partial updates and corrupted data if the system suddenly crashes halfway through. Nailing these 3 basically checks off the operational side of our review. But hey, the review definitely doesn't stop at just the mechanics. Let's transition over to Section 3, Architecture and Pitfalls.
Item number 4 on our checklist is schema design. Unlike the first 3 operational items, this is your overarching blueprint. When we scrutinize this, we're looking at how tables relate to one another, we're ensuring proper normalization, and we're double-checking that we're using the correct data types to prevent massive headaches down the line. So the crucial point is our final item, ORM misuse. Our source explicitly frames this as a trap you absolutely have to avoid. During a review, you're hunting for those common modern pitfalls. You know, things like the dreaded N+1 query problem, where your framework accidentally fires off hundreds of database calls behind the scenes instead of just executing one nice, efficient query.
And this brilliantly illustrates the narrative thread of the whole review process. It spans an entire spectrum, right? You're starting all the way over on the left with standard, raw, functional SQL queries and going all the way to the right, looking at how modern object relational mapping frameworks might be completely misusing that architecture.
Okay, take a breath. We've unpacked the theory, we've got our 5 specific review items, and we know exactly what we're looking for. But let's be real, theory without execution is pretty much incomplete. So, are you ready for some practice?
This brings us to the climax of our journey today. Section 4, Practice, the CRUD application. Let's move to and see how this builds directly into execution. The source material is totally clear on this. Step 1 was gathering our knowledge on those 5 key elements. Step 2 is putting that exact knowledge to the test by reviewing a standard create, read, update, and delete application. The theory directly informs the application test.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How will mastering these 5 exact elements fundamentally change the way you look at code starting today? Next time you sit down to review a CRUD app, those 5 items, queries, indexes, transactions, schema, and ORMs, those are your brand new lens. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Now, go out there and absolutely conquer that code review.